All right, welcome into this episode of the Chief Zone podcast. Farzine Vasugian here with you for another episode. I mentioned yesterday during last night's podcast, we're going to have a bonus episode today. Very excited for this episode. Former Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Brodie Croyle will be joining us here to talk about his time at the University of Alabama, winning the Cotton Bowl MVP against Texas Tech in 2006. Talk about his process joining the Kansas City Chiefs, getting drafted by them, his time in Kansas City, the ups and downs during his time there, also the Hard Knock series, all of that good stuff, and so much more here on this episode. Brodie, thank you for taking the time to join us here on this podcast. How have you been?
Thanks for having me on. Honored to be here, really am. And it's when you're in Alabama, you're watching the Chiefs when they're actually on TV or watching quarterback with Patrick Mahomes on there. So it's fun to kind of get plugged back in a little bit.
Yeah, we haven't heard from you in quite some time. I've got to just say this right off the bat. What happened to your hair? You used to have much more shaggier hair. When did you get rid of that?
When you're constantly trying to raise about 200 kids like we do here in Alabama, Big Oak Ranch, you have a tendency to lose your hair, apparently. But no, it was one of those. It was just kind of at some point you got to grow up and cut your long hair, I guess.
I don't know if you watched the quarterback series on Netflix that Patrick Mahomes was on.
I have, yeah.
He actually talks about the exact same thing with his trainer. He's like, yeah, I gotta get rid of the mohawk, because his trainer's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah, well, man, he's Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't necessarily have to do anything. It'd be strange to see him without that mohawk.
Yeah, that definitely would be. That they have it in stores now. Like, you can get the headband and the mohawk that comes with it, all kinds of crazy things. We'll talk.
Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe that's my problem.
We'll talk some Chiefs football, and of course your time in Kansas City a little bit later. You've got a really cool thing going right now. A lot of people may not know this, but you are part of Big Oak Ranch. You're actually the CEO of Big Oak Ranch, and this is something that your parents started. As a matter of fact, you guys just celebrated your 50-year anniversary, 50 years strong. You guys are giving kids an opportunity, essentially a second chance, who've been abused and neglected in the past. This is a really cool thing that you guys have going on. I just kind of want to start at the beginning with all of this. What motivated your family to want to start something like this?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thanks for asking. We did just celebrate 50 years, but it goes back even further than that. When my dad was 19, he was playing at the University of Alabama, ended up being an All-American there. And but one summer, he went and worked at a summer camp. And he met a little boy from the streets of New Orleans whose mother was a prostitute. And this little boy was the banker and the timekeeper for his mother. And my dad just shared with this little boy, man, how he could change his life. And the boy came back the following summer and shared with him word for word what he had taught him summer before. And he had just realized, man, I've been given a gift, and that was better than any sack or touchdown that he had ever scored. And when he came down to the choice of going to play pro ball, or starting this home for children, he went and met with a guy named Coach Bryant, which everybody down here in Alabama, that's a big name, around, now everybody recognizes Nick Saban with Alabama, but he was Nick Saban before Nick Saban was Nick Saban at Alabama. And he just said, Coach Bryant, I want to take the money from pro football, and I want to go start this home for kids. And Coach Bryant said, don't play pro ball unless you're willing to marry it. He said, tell me more about this ranch you're talking about. For an hour, he got to sit there and just share with him this dream, this vision of going and giving kids a chance, giving them a second chance at life. And walked out, never looked back. That coming fall, moved into a farmhouse with 5 boys. And, man, it just started there. And just the way that, man, it's grown and the way the Lord's blessed it. We now have the boys ranch in Gadsden that we have 14 homes at. We have a girls ranch here in Springville that we have 11 homes at. We have a school that's got about 700 students in it. We got a college campus in Birmingham that's got 52 bedrooms, and it's just grown into this opportunity to show kids a different way of life, to show them that where you came from doesn't define where it is that you're going or who it is that you're going to become, and that, man, just because you came from a certain set of circumstances We're a Christian organization. We just believe that God said, I want to bestow upon you a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. So they shall be called oaks of righteousness. And that's where the name came from. Big Oak Ranch all those years ago. We've just got to see it play out now. Man, we got kids that are now granddaddies, that there's 2 generations down that they never experienced the same thing that their granddaddy did, that their mom did, that their dad did. And honestly, that's what we do. We give kids a chance to not only change their life, but change the lives of their lineage to come behind. So when we say, man, our kids are our heroes and our kids are the cycle breakers, but man, they're breaking generational curses that follow behind them. And in the world of things you could get to do, and it was fun getting to throw touchdown passes. Wasn't as much fun throwing interceptions, but it was fun getting to play this. But man, if we're talking about just man, legacies and how you want to live your life, man, I can't think of a better way than to serve a bunch of kids that deserve a chance. And honored that out of all people that God chose my family to get to do this. And man, we look forward to doing it for another 50.
Well, if anyone that heard that story, if you guys are interested in contributing a donation in any way, here's the link. We're going to drop it in the comments below on Facebook and YouTube for those who are following on the live stream. For anyone that is listening through the audio version of it, all you have to do is go to bigoak.org/donate, and you'll see the group picture right there. And if you scroll down a little bit, that is where you'll see an opportunity to donate there. And if you're not able to donate, it never hurts to share it as well. Let some other people come across that as well. And that way you can spread the word of Big Oak Ranch through there. I mentioned, 50 years down for you and your family doing this. You being the CEO, do you have any goals or anything you want to accomplish that maybe you've never done with the ranch that you think would be pretty cool to do?
We've had a lot of growth over the past 10 years. We've been back now for 12 and been leading it as CEO now for 10 years. And we've now gotten into cattle, and we're raising anywhere from 250 to 300 head of cattle at this point in time. And we're not only just raising it, but man, we're actually eating it. So our kids are helping raise what it is that they're eating, and we're eating about 20,000 pounds of red meat every year that our kids are raising. So that's something that we want to continue to grow. We started what we call Ascend, which is our 18 to 22-year-old path of purpose that's basically taking our kids where they grew from the dependent habits that they learned in the home. Did you do your homework? Are you on time for school? What do you need for practice? Did you take your jersey? Just, hey, we got church. To now all of a sudden, man, you got to choose that for yourself. And that's a hard transition in today's world. And Kelly and my wife and I just saw that as a gap and really chased that gap. And man, just the way that we've seen it grow, we've seen a 400% increase in our children, that once they start something out of high school, they finish it, which is kind of an uncommon thing in today's world. If you start something, you finish it. It's a novel idea, but man, it sure is hard to put into practice. And then we have really the vision and the future of Big Oak is, man, it's one thing, we're still building homes. I think we've built, 9 homes in the past 5 years, 6 years. So I mean, we're still growing from that. But at the end of the day, what that is, it's an addition game. Because every time we build a home, we open up a spot for 8 more kids. And so essentially we are building homes and raising children. The problem is every time we build a home, yes, we're offering 8 more kids a chance, but the hard problem is that 10 years ago, there was about 3.5 million children in our country that were orphaned, neglected, abused, abandoned in some shape or form that we could have helped. 10 years later today, there's 7 million children that they fit that exact profile. And so unfortunately, that number has doubled in 10 years, and we're playing an addition game. So 7 years ago, we just are coming up on 7 years ago. We just started the initiative. Instead of building houses and raising children, why don't we start building communities and raising leaders? And so, man, just the way that has really taken off, over the past 6+ years is it blows my mind. We've now either helped plant, start, or grow 104 children's homes in 34 different states. Is currently serving about 6,500 children that don't call Big Oak Ranch home. So when we talk about eating the elephant, we talk about making a massive difference. We're going to continue to build homes here at Big Oak Ranch because that's our calling. But man, we're going to continue to raise leaders that have the same conviction that we do. That man, kids that come from hard places deserve the same chance, and honestly, the path that God always wanted for them to have, and the family they always wanted for them to have. So we're going to raise those people up to go do it. And man, just that's what we're doing. That's what we're chasing, and we'll do anything this side of eternity to help as many kids as we can.
That's great. That really is. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out the word about Big Oak Ranch before we move forward?
Man, there's no secret sauce here. I mean, we're a bunch of ordinary people that just chose to try to do as much as we could while we were here. And the way we do it's fairly unique. We recreate family in a really unique way, and home, whereas where we believe where family happens. And we operate under the idea and the belief system that, man, what a child repeatedly hears and repeatedly sees, they eventually repeat. And so we go try to live out a life that is worthy of repeating, so these children have a model to go follow. And we do this completely debt free. We operate with no debt, and we also operate with no state or federal funding. We are 100% privately funded. So if there is anybody that's listening that would want to learn more about what we do, we are able to grow our ministry and grow our footprint due to people that believe in what it is that we're doing and choose to hitch their wagon ours so we can go and make as big an impact as we can.
Once again, if you guys are interested in donating, just go to bigoak.org/donate and just scroll down a little bit right there, and you will see a little donation box right there for those who are interested in doing so. Very cool stuff you and your family are doing. Big ups to you guys on all of that stuff. Very, very great. And of course, you're giving kids a second chance, so definitely cannot beat anything like that. So very good to see. Let's talk some football here. Obviously, you've had a very interesting time when you consider Alabama and the Chiefs. Let's start kind of from the beginning. The process choosing Alabama. What led you to want to go play over at Alabama?
I think the easy answer is my dad played there. I grew up in Alabama. And so, when you grow up in Alabama, you're either an Alabama fan or you're an Auburn fan. So my flag was staked pretty early that I was going to be an Alabama fan. But if I'm being honest, like it wasn't the sexy choice that it is today when I chose to go there. Man, we had just come off a pretty rough time before we got there, and I was actually leaning towards going to Florida State. And because Coach Bowden was there, Jimbo Fisher was there, and so it was really kind of leaning towards going in that direction. I'm sorry, Mark Richt was there. Jimbo was at LSU. But anyway, I when Coach Bowden came to my house to really kind of give the final sales pitch, and I got to see him probably, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. At an event, and I just walked up to him. I said, "Hey, Coach Bowden, I'm Brodie Croyle. I don't know if you remember me." He said, "Hey, boy, I remember you." He said, "Your mama makes that spaghetti. She still make it." And I just was like, the fact he remembers that is what made him so special. Like my mom's like, "You're going to Florida State," but but he's there, and I just said, "Listen, Coach, like I really only got one question, like." Are you going to be there the whole time I'm there? And without blinking, he looked at me. He said, "Brodie, let me tell you something." He said, "You don't go to university because of its head coach." He said, "Head coaches come and go." He said, "You go to university because it's something you believe in, and it's something you want your name to always be attached to." And he said that obviously as a sales pitch for Florida State, but man, it spoke so true to me. Of just going, it doesn't really matter what's been going on in Alabama. I grew up wanting to play there. And, instead of complaining about the problem, why don't we go be a part of trying to fix and be a part of the solution? And it turns out old Bobby Bowden was a prophet in his own time because he had no clue that I was going to be recruited by Dubose, play for Fran, practice for Price, finish with Shula. He didn't even know what he was speaking into existence. But I had all sorts of coaches. But I can't think of a school that I would, at this point, with what we do and the influence that it is, given me and my family and this organization throughout this state to have name recognition, to draw it to, man, it was always part of the Lord's plan. But man, I thank Him for that wisdom. Even though it didn't point me towards his school, it pointed me towards, honestly, what my destiny was supposed to be.
I know there were some up and down moments, especially with the injuries you dealt with, and we can get into that a little later on. But you did end on a very high note there. That Cotton Bowl game against Texas Tech, kind of a low-scoring game, but you guys did kind of set the tone a little early with that long, big touchdown play to Keith Brown. Like I said, low-scoring, game-winning field goal right there, and they awarded you with that Cotton Bowl MVP. What was it like to be able to not only win the bowl game, but also win the MVP for that game?
That was cool. I mean, that whole season was cool. It was just a fun year. I'd obviously battled with injuries. I mean, look at me. I mean, I should have been a punter or something. I mean, not even that. I mean, today punters are huge, so I don't know what I should have been. But I should have been maybe another sport. I just tell people I was always dumb enough to just keep getting up. Like it's my claim to fame. But man, that whole season was just it was kind of an exclamation point on. We were really a group of seniors that chose to go to Alabama because it's something we wanted to attach our name to. And to be able to finish, we finished 10-2 that year. I think we finished number 6 in the country or something like that. Now they'd be trying to run the coach out of town. But for us, it was like we won the national championship because we'd been struggling so bad in between there. But, man, it was a great exclamation point on a year that, man, we were proud of, and we still were proud of. And it was one of those that when you draw something out in your mind of how it's all going to work out, you expect it to go one way, but then once you get to the end, you say, I wouldn't trade any of it, and I would not trade any of our time together, the coaching changes that we went through, the injuries that we went through, because that group that, man, we all finished together. It's a group that I think all of us can sit with pride and say, man, we chose Alabama because we wanted our name tied to it. And that Cotton Bowl was a really fun way to go out. Well, with the ugliest kick that has ever happened, too. I don't know if you've ever seen the kick to win the game. Yeah. But it was the absolute ugliest kick you've ever seen.
Well, that is how you ended your time at Alabama. You traded your Alabama red jersey for a Chiefs red jersey. Herm Edwards, and that was kind of an interesting offseason, too, because the Chiefs were transitioning from Dick Vermeil to Herm Edwards. And he was always very high on you. I know the stories that have come out with Patrick Mahomes when he was meeting with the Chiefs, the offseason he was drafted. It actually got to the point that they were actually telling him some of the plays on the playbook. I don't know if that was ever a thing with you and the Chiefs coaching staff, but obviously Herm was very high on you and felt like you would be able to start for a long time here in Kansas City. What were the conversations like in the offseason before you got drafted by the Chiefs?
I knew that the Chiefs were interested, but didn't know to what degree. But it obviously they were not expecting, I think having the conversations like they were with Patrick Mahomes where they're telling them the plays and all that. But, there was obviously an excitement and an expectation coming in. And, once again, it obviously didn't play out the way that I thought that it was going to play out or the way that I wished it would have played out. Yeah. At least in the moment. But man, I also can't argue with what that path led me to. There's so many things that I learned in my time there. Herm Edwards is still to this day one of the greatest influencers on my life. Like, man, there's so many Herm stories that, one of them was, playing really my first extensive playing time. We were getting beat in Pittsburgh. Sunday night football, man, it's snowing. I'm from Alabama. I've never played in snow before. We're getting just drummed, and fourth quarter comes around, and he's like, "You ready?" I was like, "I guess." And so he tells me to play. I go run into play, and right there at the very beginning, I think it was the first series. Like, man, I throw this pick six. Might have been my first pass. Like, I throw this pick six, and I come off the field, and man, I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, like, how in the world is this happening? Herm's over there, and he's just kind of in his own thoughts. And I'm like, am I going back in, or like, what's going on here? And he just said, well, kid, can't get no worse. Go run it again. And like, I use that now, though. Like, you know what, man? I would have went and run through a brick wall because that man believed in me enough to put me back in the game. Like, he spoke over me, like, "Hey, man, you messed up. Go make it right. Hey, that ain't who you are. Like, man, go live up to who you are, man. There's greatness inside of you. Go show everybody else what it is that I see." And man, there's so many of those moments that Herm was a part of. Like, man, just speaking over me very early, like, Brodie, like, I need you to know, like, I don't care, like, how many Pro Bowls you make, how much money you make, none of that matters, because at the end of the day, your measurement is going to be in, man, how many lives you affect, not in all those other things. And, it was a shift, a mindset shift for me, because from the time I was 11 until the time I got to Kansas City, it was all I dreamed about. It's all I thought about. It's all I wanted. I mean, and in many ways, it became my God. And I got there, and he was able to help me just go, you know what, man, football is incredibly important, but man, what you're going to do in life is more important. And I look now and I just go, man, he was so right. I wished it would have went in a different path, but at the same point, I learned how to be a leader in Kansas City because I didn't know how to lead before I got there, if I'm being completely honest. Because when I was little, I was the best athlete, and I could throw the ball the furthest, and I could kick the ball the furthest, and I could make the most shots or whatever it was. So, like, I had a coach tell me, like, "Hey, man, like, you're the leader." I'm like, "Why am I the leader?" He's like, "Because you're the best." I'm like, "Oh, so you lead because you're the best. So everybody's supposed to follow you because you're the best." It's like, so I started my leadership journey that way. Well, then all of a sudden, man, I've become the quarterback. So now I got the title that goes with being the talent, being the best. And then you got to back that up with production. And I was always able to do that for the most part until I got to the NFL and realized all these people are better than me. And then, but man, it wasn't until I got to Kansas City, and humility is a learned trait, is probably the best way I know how to put it. We signed Matt Castle, and when you sign somebody to that type of money, you quickly realize that you're not competing for a job. You're officially the backup. And it was the first time that I ever had to try to learn to lead without being the best, without having the title, without being able to produce to where people would be willing to follow. What I learned was I was a terrible teammate because I wasn't a leader, because I always put, man, maybe my own self above, maybe my own thoughts above. But I mean, I was concerned about us winning and everybody else, but it wasn't until I became a backup and I put in the same effort, I put in the same work, probably more because I also had to be a scout team quarterback on top of learning everything that it was. And then I'm investing in Matt so he can go out there and be successful on Sunday. And so it was that moment that you go, I'm putting in just as much to where on Sunday somebody else's name is chanted. And now I look at now what I get to do, and man, we got, so many different people that make this place come. I mean, we got a school with 100+ staff. We got an organization with almost 100 staff. We got 700 kids at one location. We got 200 kids at another location. And you just realize now that, man, it was all a part of, this sanctification of leadership, of going, you got to learn to always want to lead. There's no days off, and you're going to do it so somebody else can be successful. And if I look at my time with the Kansas City Chiefs, and, it's humbling when you don't ever win a football game. I mean, that's a humbling deal. It's humbling when you get knocked out of the game half those times that you even started. But now that I look at what that journey looked like to get me to the seat to where I now get to lead so many amazing people, it turns out Herm's words were right. Man, what you're doing now, yes, it's important, but man, it's not going to be what defines your life. And I'm grateful for him, and I'm grateful for my time in Kansas City because of that.
That's really great perspective. And you mentioned, it did not go as planned at all. No one wanted it to go that way. I think the toughest part, when you go through something like that is probably, physically, health wise, so many injuries. It's weird because the very first game as a Chief, you did not play in that game, but Trent Green got hurt, and so Damon Heward comes in, and then the following year, you guys are competing for the starting spot. And then you mentioned Matt Castle when he came in, and he was unavailable for a couple of games, so you got a couple of more starts to fill in for him. And it was just kind of like an up and down yo-yo, but the injuries, I would imagine, just had to have been a very difficult thing for you to deal with. Can you describe, like, mentally and emotionally, like, how difficult it was during those times? Because I would imagine, like, the more it kept happening, you would probably think to yourself, like, man, again, this is happening. Like, why does this keep happening?
Yeah, I mean, I've had 11 surgeries, broken vertebrae, punctured lungs,
Oof.
bleeding spleens. Like I've had all the stuff, man. I've had a lot of it, but there's a once again there's a perspective part to this. And my wife, if she was on here, I doubt she would pay me very many compliments. But I think one that she would be like, man, there's one thing she's always appreciated is just my perspective on life. And I 100% attribute that to this place where I went straight from the hospital to this place called Big Oak Ranch, where my best friends, man, their mom and dads dropped them off at their front door. Like, man, where their dad would get drunk and put cigarettes out on their bellies because he'd lose a hand of cards. Or, man, their mom would sell them, at a truck stop to where, she could pay her rent. Like, these are the kids that I grew up with. Great kids. Just came from really hard spots. And I think that was a catalyst to me being able to get over injuries. And I say it for this reason. One, I was raised by a dad who played for Bear Bryant, whose first message to me was, I don't care what happens, you get up off that field and you get off of it no matter what, because your season's going to be over one way or another if you don't. Like that was the mindset that I grew up with. So I lived with this, man, just get up, just get up, just get up. But when it came to I think the injury it happens. You immediately know it, like you immediately know what's going on. And it's heartbreaking. Like I can vividly remember tearing my ACL, I just kind of come back from hurting my shoulder against the Patriots when I'd earned a starting job, and
Yeah.
I got knocked out with a severe AC joint separation and came back, and it was my first game back. I was playing well. I guess who was that against? The Titans. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget, it was an end cut, man, hit the end cut, out means hit me low, another guy hit me high, and I knew it. ACL, done. And like it's immediate. I remember sitting in that locker room just weeping and weeping, going, man, like, good gracious, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But then there's that reminder that, man, this is a game. You have 6 months worth of rehab in front of you. And that can be demoralizing. I mean, it's a constant mind game of just get a little bit better today. Like, just get a little bit better today. It's kind of where I adopted the mindset that, man, today deserves my best. Like yesterday didn't happen and tomorrow doesn't matter. Today deserves my best. Like that is from rehab. Like it's 100% from rehab. But there's also a perspective that came from that of going, I grew up with kids. They're just trying to put the pieces of their life back together and trying to figure out why all these things happened to them. And here I am complaining about 6 more months worth of rehab. I'll come back. I'll be stronger than I was before. There'll be another chance. And I always could revert back to that. I could always figure that out. And it's honestly probably what kept me going, of constantly coming back, because there was a lot of surgery. There was a lot of pain. There was a lot of hurt. There was a lot of rehab. but man, it just I would say those two things. You know, my dad saying just keep getting up, and those kids that I grew up with that had it a whole lot worse than I did. That man, they kept getting up as well. It was just kind of a driver, and it was something that we wanted to accomplish too.
I got to ask you about the Hard Knock series because, which, by the way, you mentioned your wife Kelly. She was a celebrity here in
Yeah,
Kansas City. She was
she is celebrity, you know.
she was on, I think, like a local dealership. I think it was like a Ford dealership, and then on the Hard Knock series, they showed
Olathe Toyota, Kenny
yeah, like the
Thomas.
Toyota. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And then on the Hard Knocks, I mean, they showed the family members, but I feel like they showed her more than any of the other family members from the team. I've had Jason Dunn on the podcast, and he was not a big fan. I mean, he's able to look back at it and laugh at all the moments and everything.
Jason Dunn, that's awesome.
Yeah, he and Tony have had some moments. Dwayne Bowe being duct taped to the goalpost, all that stuff. But there've been a lot of complaints over the years about the series. People saying it's too distracting. They're following you, maybe even too intrusive. I know with you, they're following you and your wife at home packing. They show you being picked up from the airport. They even follow you at one point when you and your wife were just having dinner. What was Hard Knocks like? Because not only are they following your family's life, you're an important part of that series because you're competing for the starting quarterback spot. And it was a huge deal because that was the first year back because they were in hiatus for a couple of years. What was your Hard Knocks experience like?
I think I was just young enough that I didn't know what I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jason Dunn had been in the league for 10 years at that point in time. So for him, he's like, man, this is so stupid. What are we doing here? You know, but for me, it's my second training camp. I just got married. And so it's like, I didn't know what I didn't know, to be honest with you. And it just, it was interesting. It's probably the best way I know how to tell you. Like I can't tell you I enjoyed it, but I also can't tell you like it was a huge distraction and I hated this or this. And you know, I won't go into all the details, but you know, I'm not going to say all those scenes were authentic scenes.
Editing.
You know, it painted the picture like Kelly forgot to pick me up from the airport, and she's like, I literally was making a loop because the cop told me I couldn't be here. You know, so I mean, you know, they wanted to come to my wedding. And I'm like, all right, I'm drawing the line here. Like, we're getting married July 14th. They're like, can we come to your wedding before we really start filming? That could be the kickoff. I'm like, no way. Like, no way are you coming to my wedding. But man, it would have been funny if they would have. They'd have seen Boomer Grigsby and wearing nothing but a vest and glasses. They'd have seen Jared Allen breakdancing on a dance floor. But man, it was fun. It really was. I mean, it's something now you can kind of look back on. There's some things you look back and you just kind of cringe, going, "Oh man." Thank goodness we just didn't embarrass ourselves too bad.
Yeah, I've been wanting to rewatch it for a while. I just recently found out it's on Peacock. So for anyone that's out there that wants to rewatch a series, or maybe the new Swifties who are fans, they can go back on Peacock and watch it. I got to watch the last episode, so I'm curious to know what that looks like before it all ended. A couple of questions before we let you go here. Obviously, you know, we've alluded to Patrick Mahomes, this Chiefs team, and everything they've accomplished here. What are your thoughts when you see this team? Because there's all this talk about a three-peat, which has never been done in NFL history before. You think Kansas City can pull that off?
I would find it hard to believe that anyone would ever bet against Patrick Mahomes. Like, if anybody can pull it off, that guy is a magician. But man, he has a will to win that is incredible. I mean, and I think what I loved about that quarterback series is I think most people see how gifted he is. You know, just when you're watching him play, like the no-look stuff, the 70-yard, like off your back foot, the throws nobody else can make, the underhand, like in cut, right? Like he's incredibly gifted. But I believe sets him apart, and what makes me say, why in the world would you ever bet against him, is how hard the guy works. like how much he loves the game, how much he's a student of the game, how much, you know, God, you look at what he's putting in off the field during the season to be who he is. And he very easily could be a successful quarterback in the NFL without putting any of that in. But I believe what is setting him up to be in the conversation of the best that ever played is, man, his work ethic and his desire and will to win. And I don't see them slowing down anytime soon. And man, I'm rooting for him all the way down here in Alabama to see it take place. And my kids ain't quite figured out yet, though, that, they just assume me and Patrick Mahomes were like the same guy since we both played quarterback at Alabama. So if it's all cool with you and everybody else, let's just let them keep believing that until they realize maybe my term and our time there at Kansas City, we kind of set the stage for Patrick Mahomes to come. We wouldn't have been so bad. There wouldn't have been this chance for them to go get Andy Reid and go get Patrick Mahomes. So, maybe we had a hand.
I like your perspective. It's all good. By the way, I forgot to mention, because you didn't have kids when you were in Kansas City, your two sons, have they seen the Hard Knocks series?
They have not. They have not seen the Hard Knocks series. I'm not sure their mama wants them to see it just yet. I'm not even sure that's PG-13 at this point in time. There's some colorful language on them Hard Knocks.
Yeah, there definitely is. I will say this on Peacock. I'm not a big fan of this, but they did censor everything. So the 7 words in the George Carlin, like you don't hear any of that. So
you don't hear any of it.
No.
Well, is it just silent because 3/4 of the words seem like they were one of those 7?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Gunther, Tim Krummer. I mean, it was very entertaining to say the least. Alabama, I got to ask. I mean, Alabama's been a powerhouse program for so many years. You're now, moving on in the post Nick Saban era. What are the expectations over there right now?
If you've never been to Alabama, the expectation is the expectation because the standard is the standard. And that is, if you don't win the national championship, that was a failure. And whether that's fair, not fair, whatever you want to call it, I would tell you people of the state of Alabama expect us to win. And they expect us to compete. But, man, everything that I'm hearing coming out of camp is that DeBoer's doing a great job. A different mentality, a different tactic. But, man, looking forward to the season and seeing how those guys respond to it.
2 more quick ones for you. I know you're in Alabama. You're not as connected to Kansas City anymore, but I really would love your perspective on this because I think towards the end of your time in Kansas City, that is when they got done with renovations for the stadium and the training facility. I don't know if you've been following this story, but there is a possibility the Chiefs might leave Arrowhead. Have you been following that story? And there's also some talks of possibly moving to Kansas. Have you been following that story? And what do you make when you hear them possibly leaving?
Definitely read about it.
Complex?
Yeah, no, I read about it. And man, I hadn't been following it enough to probably even make a statement or a comment on it other than Arrowhead Stadium's a pretty cool place to play. It's in my opinion, in NFL as close to a college atmosphere as you're going to get with a bunch of people that are just sold out to the team. Obviously that's my memories of Kansas City and would love to see it continue on because it's such just a historic and legendary place. But and I don't know enough about the politics of it or what goes into it.
No, fair enough. Last thing I did want to ask you, I've actually wanted to ask this for a very long time. I'm very curious. So you were on HBO's Hard Knocks, but you had a teammate that was on another HBO series, was actually pranked on there, Shad Williams. He actually shared a funny story about how through the Sacha Baron Cohen, Ali G show, just basically pranking him, messing with him, kind of being funny with it. He did not realize it at the time, but when it actually aired, Shad shared a story about how his phone was blowing up and everyone was trying to contact him. And I think you were on the team when that happened. Do you recall the moment when Sacha Baron?
I don't recall the moment. I remember telling Shad, like, I'm so glad it was you and wasn't me. Because, man, I mean, he wasn't a name then. He wasn't really. So I mean, Sean thought he was serious,
Yeah.
So he didn't think it was a prank in any form. But man, you talk about a class guy, and Shy Williams was always just a class guy, great teammate. And man, I love that guy. I hadn't had a chance to speak to him in a long time, but I know his character, and so I'm sure he's doing great things in life.
Yeah, I believe he's a strength and coordinator of some sort at one of the colleges.
That would make sense. I'm sure he's running the ball. He
Yeah.
didn't ever like it when we called pass plays. He always wanted to give him the ball.
Yeah, definitely, probably something he'd be in favor of. Last time, before we let you go, Brodie, bigoak.org/donate. If you guys are interested, would love to help Big Oak Ranch. There's the visual right there for those of on the audio version. Just go to bigoak.org/donate if you would like to donate. Hey, Brodie, I really do appreciate you opening up. I know it wasn't like some of the most exciting times in Kansas City, but your perspective was really great, and I really do appreciate you sharing all of that and giving that perspective and trying to look at the positives on that. I've never heard a story like that before, so I do appreciate you talking about all of that. And congratulations to you and your family, 50 years, Big Oak Ranch. Keep doing your thing, and hopefully we can follow up and see some good things from Big Oak Ranch down the road.
Man, that sounds great. Thank you for having me on, and go Chiefs.
All right. Appreciate it, Brodie. Take care. All right. That was Brodie Croyle, former Kansas City Chiefs quarterback and Cotton Bowl MVP with Alabama. Definitely appreciate him giving some time to join us here on the podcast. Reminder, tomorrow, Red Friday live chat. We will talk some Chiefs before their preseason game against the Lions. Other than that, I'll talk to you all later. Once again, big thanks to Brodie Croyle from Alabama over at Big Oak Ranch. Talk to you all later. Next episode. Take care.